A poem, a letter, a song. It didn't matter all along. The light dimmed, gone. My life in a second, undone. Welcome everyone to another episode of The Adventure Writer. My name is Kelfecil and I'm a professional narrative and game designer. I love creating narratives that matter, and today I want to discuss and dissect one of my favorite stories that I ever created, The Festival of the Lost. I designed, wrote and published Festival of the Lost about 4 years ago, and it specifically came out on February 11th of 2021, and it was without a doubt my intro into understanding and writing one-shot adventure narratives. The reason why I'm saying an intro is because before Festival of the Lost, I had only ever written longer and more complex adventures with narratives that required a lot more than just a one-shot or just one session to be played and fully felt or understood. Windrider, Tower of Starlight, The Daughter of the Wind were all bigger stories that required a lot more than just a session in order to be fully experienced. I generally do not shy away from longer and more complex narratives, and I am a firm believer that the short attention span content is not exactly what moves us as players and readers who crave interactive experiences. So just like I won't give credit to a TikTok video for its narrative structure and design, I also won't dwell deep into one-shot adventures in the same manner. There is a trick, however, a trick to making one-shots with narratives that can actually move people and make them feel like saying, hey, this is a cool story and this story actually moved me. So with the pressure I had coming from the industry that was hungry for one-shot adventures, the pressure that says, if you want to sell more, you better make bite-sized content to flood the market, I started my voyage into creating content that would be shorter and easier to sell. I decided to do it in my own way though. No dungeon crawling, no encounter upon encounter to just get the session to last longer and have more content for those that are hungry for it in just 5 pages of writing. I wanted to bring a story that players would remember long after they're done with it. This has always been my goal with my designs and with my writing, and although I do not always achieve it, I do not want to ever stop trying to make it so. So, enter Festival of the Lost. I decided from the get-go to start designing this adventure the way I designed the previous ones I had already written. I wanted to at least have the main NPC that accompanies the players to have a proper background write-up, and I wanted the environment to come to life through the writing. A poem to introduce the adventure was already a fantastic way to start things off. I mean, what's more catchy than feelings put into just a few words that each reader interprets in their own personal manner? After that, a unique adventure hook was extremely important to have. Specifically, the Wandering Samisen layer was how I picture most GMs would want to start off the adventure. It is way more memorable than the standard glory, money or values kind of like adventure hook thing that adventure writers most often use when creating them. The adventure would not be unique if it was just standardized writing on every other page, and the adventure hooks are part of those pages too. In Act 1, the players arrive at the village where the festival takes place, and they immediately see tons of merchants with their stands full of curiosities. So this is something that I learned, well, let's say the hard way as a GM in the past. The moment you introduce any kind of curiosity, especially in a store kind of setting, players will spend the next 3 hours discussing, bartering and doing all sorts of things that will eat up your whole session's time. This is amazing though, because some of the best sessions I remember as a GM were literally those when I did not have to do much and the players just played out entire scenes on their own. This is one of the most fantastic things in role-playing games though. The fact that this is interactive storytelling and the players being able to be as involved as they want to in the narrative and the creation of it is what makes the whole thing. Therefore, we, the designers of the adventure, can play around with all sorts of information and hooks that we can put in places to get the players spinning their own tales based on the things we've created. From Yumena, who sells intricately named bottles filled with all sorts of things, to Tamako, who sells various delicacies, some based on real ones that make the players feel the connection to the real world as well. There is something for everyone to try out. So from there, moving on to Act 2, this is where the railroading of the narrative is necessary, since if you want to keep this as a one-shot adventure, you have to force certain situations. As much as I do not like forcing situations, you kind of have to in order to help the progress of the narrative and help the players have more things to work with when interacting with the world you set before them. With a portal at the far end of the street opening up and strange spirits coming out, it sets an urgency that the players must act upon. Not only that, but a little bit of extra exposition is provided in the form of a priestess explaining what she believes is going on. Someone more expert on the matter is always good to have around if you want the players to get something that they might not see themselves. This was also the first time I worked with a map variant instead of just using two entirely different maps. I'm actually quite surprised at the lack of imagination that many adventure writers before me have showcased by never doing this sort of thing. I know it sounds a bit weird to say that, but seeing the map variant immediately set my storytelling gears in motion, and I tried to create a story based on that instead of just immediately using a different map to move on the narrative. I was lucky to be working with Ori the Cartographer's maps, since back then she created really inspired and imaginative maps and variants for those maps. So I was instantly inspired to make a Souls-plane version of the same map the players were on before. The feeling of familiarity that the players get when they arrive at a place they already know, but is now somehow changed in some peculiar way, is a fantastic way to set the tone. I needed no words in order to explain this, since the visual storytelling was all there, and it was done way more perfectly than I would ever have done it, or would have ever bothered to make it myself. Adjusting to the things you have is sometimes more important than creating your own thing. Keep that in mind, because many writers begin by creating stories and then try to ask others to illustrate what they have created. This is why I absolutely love working with all sorts of artists who I give tons of freedom to create what they want to create instead of just telling them exactly what I want. I can do art direction, but I'm not the one creating it because I do not have the skill and expertise to do it. So just like people trust me for narrative design, I trust the artist to do art. As soon as the players have dealt with the things going on in Act 2, Act 3 begins, and the boss fight begins. Honeona not only is known, at least to some people, as a monster in legends and tales, but also something that perfectly fit the vision I had for the wife of the calligrapher. I wanted something that the players could relate to and cared about. It is most certainly a disturbing thing to have to fight against a person that the lovely NPC you've been accompanying to this festival wants to finally see again. All the love stories he's told you and all the feelings he's expressed have become manifest, and it is up to you to beat them back to oblivion so that nobody gets hurt. It is a simple yet elegant take on the whole control your feelings kind of narrative, so setting up a whole scene for this kind of situation hits just as hard as a long action movie with a sad ending would. I also always love to write a good epilogue for my stories, and back then I went with a few different ways that the story could have ended. It was based on what adventure hook you used to tell the story, and honestly to this day, I do believe that the wandering shamisen player hook is still the true beginning and ending to the Festival of the Lost narrative. At least so it is in my mind. Rewarding the players with a calligrapher's wheel was a no-brainer, since that is something that would not only remind them of a tale they experienced, but it would also bring meaning to their next adventures too. So if you're interested in reading or even playing Festival of the Lost, then I have left a link in the description below so that you can go ahead and download it for free. Yes, for free, because sometimes sharing is caring, and if you want someone to believe in your content enough to support you financially, like through my awesome Patreon page, then you have to prove that you can make good stuff first. I put this adventure together 4 years ago, and to this day I'm very proud of what I created with it. I still believe it perfectly reflects what Kelfecil's Tales is all about. I have worked with many writers since then, and it is true that not all of the adventures I published reflect the same design ideology, just because my collaboration with them was not always as fruitful as I hope it would be, but I am still happy I got to work with tons of different people to better understand and learn what I should and should not do. And I say should because some things just do not express me as a creative person the same way others do. As much as I loved creating certain content lines, there are some things that I believe in, and for example, Sophros Reliquary was proof of writing dungeon crawls in a certain manner, because I was able to design a dungeon crawl with a twist to it, making it interesting and not just a bland hack and slash through dark holes. But that is something we will discuss in another video. As always, if you like this video, like and subscribe so that you can stay notified for future videos, and if you'd like to support me, then you'll be happy to know that I am running a Patreon page with new and exclusive ttrpg content every single month. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons who, with their amazing support, they are helping me do what I love to do the most. And till next time, may Stella guide your way, my friends. Bye bye.